Okay, it's 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started to honor your time and my time and everybody's time and make sure we can get through the lesson. This is week 7, and we're going to be talking about the yoga for kids. We're going to go over some basics of yoga, and this is kind of around a message that we promote throughout Extension, which is kids grow best in motion, and you need to encourage at least 1 hour of physical activity a day for youth. My name is Bridget Morsaro-Amon, and I'm the Family Consumer Science Extension Educator in Ada County, located here in Boise. And with me today, I have Cindy Martinez, who is our 4-H outreach Extension Educator instructor with me, who's going to be help facilitating the chat. If you have questions, she will be collecting those, and we will have a chance to answer those at the end. And so as we get started, the first thing I'm going to do is share with you. In Extension, we have other departments and other things we do besides just family consumer science. We do a lot of outreach and research and other things. And I'm going to share with you one of those departments. This is our food production work we do in Extension, a little video on it. I'm going to share it to kind of give you some, introduce you some other parts of Extension.
University of Idaho Extension is growing Idaho's economy by improving sustainable food production systems while supporting ranchers and farmers. From livestock and forages to pest and disease management, variety development, small farms and food systems, and farm and ranch management, UI Extension is helping to build a better future.
Okay, so that was just a little bit about some of the other things we do. We do agricultural research, we do agricultural extension, we have family consumer science, we have agriculture, we have 4-H program, we have lots of different programs in extension. But today, talking a little bit about myself, in my area with family consumer science, I focus on health and nutrition. I lead a diabetes prevention program where we do diabetes classes, healthy lifestyle classes, also some one-time nutrition programs with helping people learn how to feed their families healthy food and meals and snacks. I also do programming in the area of consumer food safety and food preservation with the Master Food Safety Program, where it's a 6 to 7 week program where people come in and we train them and certify them to go out and teach others in their community how to help safely handle and preserve freeze can, dry, pressure can food. And then I also work in the 4-H youth development arena. And in this arena, I do Healthy Habits, which is a 2-part. It's the yoga for kids, which you're going to learn about today, and we're going to practice here in a moment. And then I also do the Choose Health, Food, Fitness, and Fun curriculum. We do lessons out of this where we do hands-on food activities and nutrition lessons with youth. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So just a basic introduction to yoga is what we're going to talk about. Who practices yoga, the benefits of yoga. We're going to talk about some safety and tips, and then we're going to practice some basic poses. So I'll pause my screen at that moment and go in the other room where you actually can see me, and I'll try to demonstrate the poses, and I'll encourage you to do them along with me if you have the space and the room to do so. So let's talk about it. So we're going to do a quick poll here to find out how many of you have done yoga and how much you've done it. Okay, so it looks like we have a mixed, we have half the group that's done yoga 5 or more times, and we have about half the group that hasn't done it at all, or they've only done it once or twice. So let's talk a little more about yoga. So who does yoga? Go ahead and put in the chat who you think does yoga. So basically, everybody does yoga. You've got young people, women, men, even dogs can do yoga, right? So basically, yoga is for everyone. That's one of the things that's great about yoga is that it's for all ages, all body types. Almost anybody can do yoga.
You have some comments that have people who want to strengthen their backs, people with stress.
So you guys have jumped ahead, which is great. You know, what are some of the benefits of yoga? So go ahead and type into the chat what you think the benefits are. You've already put in there to strengthen your muscles, your backs, your posture, for stress. What are some of the other benefits that you think are to practicing yoga? Your nervous system, flexibility, yes, all of these things. Muscle stamina, for having muscles, yes, for growing your muscles, strength, relaxation, all of these things. Yoga really does help us build our muscles, maintain our posture, our flexibility. It can help us relieve stress. These are all some of the benefits of yoga. And I like this guy here because he's raising his hand and saying, yes, yes to yoga. So some safety tips before we go ahead and practice some of the poses. The poses that I'm going to do with you today are part of the 4-H yoga for kids that are part of the curriculum that I was trained on. And so some of the names we use for the yoga poses aren't the traditional Sanskrit. They're more kid-friendly names for the poses. And some of them are names that we use in your basic yoga classes, but we've also modified some of them to be more kid-friendly. But before we get started, just noting that our health and our safety matters. When we're practicing any form of exercise, injuries can happen. So it's really important that you always warm up first. So if you're at home right now and you're getting ready to practice these poses with me, go ahead and start walking in place. I see somebody on screen doing that. Thank you. Always important to stay within your limits. So what does that mean? So sometimes we're trying a new exercise or activity and it's really hard and we're like, oh, this is hard. That's okay. But if at any point you're like, ouch, ouch, that hurts, that means you need to stop. Exercise should push you and you should feel challenged, but you shouldn't be in pain. If you begin to feel pain, then that's your limit. You can't go any further. And some of that has to do with if we've had a previous injury. Everybody's different. Some of us are more flexible than others. So you know your limits. When your body starts to go from feeling challenged to feeling in pain, you need to stop and readjust and maybe not bend as far or move as far. You also need to avoid bouncing or jerking. So really good when you get into your poses, you want to try to hold them, not bounce up and down. That's hard for our joints. And we also don't want to jerk because that is also hard. We want to flow into our poses, not jerk into them, because that is also hard on our joints. It's always good to keep your knees and your elbows. So even though you're here and you're going straight, you don't want to lock out your elbows or your knees. Has anyone ever seen a soldier standing at attention and they have to stand there for a long, long time? And sometimes they'll lock their knee joints back. And what happens is they tend to pass out because they've actually cut off circulation. We don't want to cut off circulation. So always leave a slight bend in your knees and in your elbows as you're doing your poses. It's also important to stay in proper alignment. And when I'm practicing the poses with you, I'm going to try to cue you with verbal cues to help you stay in proper alignment. And we're going to talk about that. It's also important to remember to breathe. Really important to breathe. And before we get started, we're going to do a short breathing activity. One of the main lessons in yoga is about breathing. Throughout the yoga practice, you need to remember to breathe and use your breath. Your breath can actually help you as you flow through the poses. And we don't want to hold our breath because then again, we could pass out. So always remember to breathe. It's also important that during balance poses that you find a focal point. So that means as you're starting to do a balance pose, say you're doing tree pose and you're balancing on one leg, you don't want your head going all around because that might make you dizzy and fall down. You want to stay focused. So you could look at something on the wall or something at the floor. Just focus on something. Like right now, I'm focusing on the heart on the screen. That's going to help you stay balanced. You also might have to hold on to something. I might have to hold on to a wall or a chair when I'm doing a pose, and I will demonstrate that when I do the dancer pose. We're all different. Some of us have more balance than others. And some days we have better balance than other days. Some days our balance is just a little off. It's always okay to hold on to a chair or a wall to get our balance versus falling over or hurting ourselves. And sometimes you'll find one side of your body has more balance than the other. That's often the case. The last thing is always remember to wear comfortable clothes that won't bind or restrict movement. Oftentimes when we go out to teach yoga with youth, the first time we come, they weren't prepared. And so they're wearing jeans or some kind of tight clothing where they're not actually able to stretch or move into the poses. So it's really important to wear comfortable clothes where you can move your arms and your legs freely so you can get into those poses. Okay, so before we get started, we're going to begin with breathing. So part of yoga, like I told you, is very important to breathe. And so oftentimes when you begin in yoga, they have you put your hands to heart center They'll have you sit on the ground, or you could do it standing. But most of the time you're sitting down on the ground. You can have your legs crossed or out straight in front of you, whichever's comfortable. You kind of want to rotate so that you're on your sit bones, which are your bottom bones. Make sure you're nice and centered. Hands to heart center, or they can be down on your knees. They can be palms down, facing into yourselves, or palms open. So if you're sitting at a chair right now, you can sit with your hands open or turned down, and you're going to practice breathing. And so before I begin the video, I want you really quick just to take a deep breath and breathe out. So what did you see there? My chest lifting, right? Well, what we want to do with this breathing is deep breathing, where we're not lifting our chest, but we're pushing our belly out. We're filling the breath into our belly, holding it, and then breathing out. So it's more of a deep belly breathing that we want to do. And with the box breathing, you can do this either with a visual like we're going to do, or you can just help kids visualize a box in their brain, in their mind, close their eyes, and like they're holding their breath as they go up. They're going to breathe in as they go across. They're going to hold it as they go down, and then they're going to breathe out as they go across. So let's go ahead and practice. This is about 1 minute of deep breathing. And what deep breathing does is it actually helps your heart rate go down. That's why when we're in stressful situations, we take a deep breath, and it actually helps our body relax and calm down. So it's really important. And it takes about 5 really good deep breaths to get our heart rate to come down. So continue to breathe out, hold your breath, breathe in, hold your breath, breathe out, hold your breath, and breathe in. So what did you notice? Did you guys feel a little more relaxed now? How was the breathing? And always know that every one of us is different. If 4 counts is too long for you, you can make it 3. You can shorten it, or you can make it deeper. So let's go ahead. So now we're going to practice some basic poses. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to go in the other room. And the poses that we're going to practice today, we're actually going to start with the mountain pose, which I'll talk about, which is actually not on this poster. But we're going to start with the mountain pose. We're going to do tree, then warrior 1, 2, and 3. We're going to do ragdoll. We're going to do triangle into half moon. We're going to do dancer, and then frog, which is also sometimes referred to as the catcher squat, or then we're going to go into tabletop, to a plank, down into cobra, up into down dog. Then we're going to end with the knee stand and the camel pose. I'm going to show a modification on the camel pose. For some people, what the child is demonstrating here is too hard for them. So you don't have to go all the way back. You don't have to bend back. You can just go slightly back, and you don't have to touch your heels. If that doesn't work for you, some people have had a back injury or they're not that flexible, that's okay. Then we're going to end in hero and child's pose. And after we're done practicing these basic poses, if we have time, we're going to do the last pose, which is referred to sometimes as the best or the most important pose, which is Savasana at the end. So I'm going to stop sharing and go in the other room.
Begin.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So to begin, you want to find, if you have a mat, that's great. I don't know if you guys can see me. I'm going to pull this back a little bit. So if you have a mat that you can begin in, or a flat surface, and you want room around yourself, and we begin in what's called the mountain pose. With the mountain pose, our feet and our hips are in alignment and our hands are out to the side. And to know that your hips and your feet are in alignment with your shoulders, one easy way to do that is to make two fists, bend your knees a little, and if your fist can fit between your feet, you are most likely in alignment. So this is how you begin. You know, once you practice, you kind of know when you're in alignment. You want to kind of rock back and forth, feel all corners of your feet on the mat, nice and firm, your hands down to the side. This is mountain pose. This is your base. This is where you begin. From here, we're going to go into tree pose. We're going to start on the right side. And what I tell people is this leg is facing forward. This, we're going to go out into almost like a number 4. I start with my toes inside the ankle of my left foot. And you can stay here. If you want to move up, you can go to the inside of your calf. You don't ever want to go on your knee. This would push your knee joint, and that's not good. We don't want to put any stress on our joints. So this is a good tree pose. And from here, you can try to reach your hands up, see if you can balance. And this is where you want to focus. And you could go to the inside of your thigh if you are able to balance and do that. Right now, I'm not wearing the best clothing to do that. My pants are kind of slippery. And you can balance up to here. Then you bring it down, and then we're going to do the other side. So what you do on one side, you always want to do on the other, because we want to build the muscles and the strengths and flexibility on both sides of our body. We don't want to wobble, right? So go ahead and turn this leg straight, this leg out to the left. Toes in. You can move up to your calf. From here, you can balance out here. And maybe you have more balance on this side than you did the other. And maybe you can lift it above your knee. Remember, you never want your foot on your knee. And then you can balance like a tree. You could sway. That might throw you off though. Okay, bring your foot down. Then we're going to go back into mountain pose. From mountain pose, we're going to go into our warrior 1. So for warrior 1, we're going to take our right foot and step it forward. Our foot's going to be facing this way. Our knee is going to be facing the same way front. Our hips are going to be turned. So we're facing this way. Our knee is over our toe, not beyond it, just on top of it. You never want your knee over your toe. Your back foot is at an angle. So if you're looking at a clock, your foot would be facing about 10 or 11 o'clock on the back, and your front toe is facing forward. And from here, your hips are turned forward, arms straight up. This is warrior 1. You're strong like a warrior. Then we're going to transition to warrior 2. And to do that, you pull your left elbow back if you're pulling a bow and arrow, and you're going to turn. So now your hips are facing forward. Your back foot is slightly turned. You're going to gaze over your front fingers. And here, the heel of your front foot should make a direct line to the arch of your back foot. So this is warrior 2. From warrior 2, you could do warrior 3. You don't have to. This is a balance pose. You're going to lift your back foot up a little, and you're going to turn and fly. Your back heel is pointing directly back with your toes facing the ground, and your arms could be forward or to the side or back. This may be something that you have to hold on to a table to do. That's okay until you get your balance. Then we're going to go back into warrior 2, where our hips are open. We're gazing over our front fingers. We're going to slightly straighten our front leg. We're going to lift our arms up, lift our waist up, lean forward, and then we're going to drop into triangle. From here, your right hand can come to your calf or to your inside ankle, and you're going to lift up and try to look up at your hand if you can. If you can't, that's okay. And then you're going to slightly bend your front knee, come back into warrior 2. Then you're going to airplane around, back into warrior 1, and step forward. So now we're back into mountain pose facing the front of our mat. Now we have to do the other side. So we're going to step our right foot back into warrior 1 with our hips facing forward, front knee bent, back foot 10, 11 o'clock, actually 1 and 2 o'clock now, arms straight up. We're going to take our right elbow back like we're doing a bow and arrow. We're really trying to push our backside together so our hips are open. Stirring over our front fingers.
knee bent, but not over the front toes. And from here, if we want to go into warrior three, you kind of move your back leg forward a little bit and up into the balance pose. Again, your toes are facing down, your heel is pushed back. And then from here, go back into warrior two. Straighten your front leg a little bit, lift up, reach forward, drop your left hand to your calf or your inside ankle, look up. And I forgot last time, you can go from here into what's called half moon. And to do that, you bend your front knee forward, your left hand's gonna come out in front of you. You're going to pick up your back leg and you'll be up into what they call half moon. This again is a balance pose. It takes a while to do it. And then you bend your knee and come back down, back up into warrior two, airplane around into warrior one, and then back up. Okay, now you can reposition back into mountain pose. And from here, we're gonna try dancer. So on the poster, it just shows someone standing like this. So how do you get there? So to get into dancer, again, make sure you're aligned. I'm gonna turn sideways. So how you start with dancer is you're going to lift your right arm up. Your left leg is gonna come up, the knee. You're gonna reach back to see if you can grab your foot and to pivot your hand around. Then you're gonna press your foot and your hand together. And here you can lean forward into dancer pose. Here again, you may need to grab a table to do this. That's okay. You may not be able to do a dancer pose. I wasn't able to do it at first, so I began slowly getting myself there, right? Let's start on the other side. Again, left hand up, right hand, reach back for your foot if you can grab it, and then lean forward. Whew, I don't have as much balance on that side. So there's dancer pose. Okay, so let's go back to our mountain. Take your feet a little further out. I'm gonna go ahead and have you reach up tall, hands to heart center, reach up tall again. Now I'm gonna have you take your hands out to the side, bend at your waist, push forward, push your hips back, and then come down into a ragdoll. So in ragdoll, your feet are a little further out than your hips. You grab both elbows, lean over, and kind of rock back and forth. This is ragdoll, or forward bend. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and have you put your hands down on the ground, bend your knees, and then we're gonna go into a catcher spot. Or with the kids, we call this frog. And the kids tend to like this. And I tell them, you can put your hands here if you want. You try to get your feet, your heels down on the ground if you can. Oftentimes they're up here. We try to just work with them to get their heels down. And then from here, I'm gonna go ahead and have you come forward. We're gonna go ahead and go into tabletop. So with tabletop, you want your hands and your wrists and your shoulders all in alignment. You want your hands spread out wide because you need to use all of your hands, the palm, the fingers, the entire part of the hand. You want to make sure they're aligned under the shoulders. Your elbows kind of turn slightly in. Your feet are here. And you can tap your feet a little bit. This kind of feels good sometimes. And from tabletop, to get to plank or down dog, you go ahead and tuck your toes under, lift your knees up, and then push back. Lift your hips up, spread your hands wide. And then from down dog, you go forward into plank. So you're coming forward, still your hands, elbows, shoulders, all in alignment. And from here, you can lift your knees down, feet flat, hips down, straight back. You want your thumbs in your palms, in your elbows. And from here, you can lift up into mini cobra. We usually do mini cobra a couple of times. And then if the youth are comfortable, or if you're comfortable, you can push up into a full cobra. Really important to keep your shoulders out of your ears, your collarbone nice and wide, and then come back down. From here, tuck your toes. You're gonna push back up into tabletop. And from here, we're gonna go into hero's pose, which is back like this. And from hero's pose, we're gonna go up into a knee stand. And now we're gonna go to camel. So camel is a sort of a little bit of a back bend, so be very careful. If you're having back injuries or if anything is uncomfortable, you wanna be very careful. So with camel pose, you're in a knee stand, so you stay on your knees in alignment. You would take one hand and put it in your back pocket, take your other hand, and then you can slightly look up and go back. And maybe this is all you're comfortable with. That's okay. Maybe you can go back a little more. That's okay. Maybe this is it. For some people, they can go clear back and grab their heels into a full camel pose. And then you always want to come back up by putting one hand in one pocket, one hand on the other, sitting straight up. Last thing you bring up is your head and your neck, and then you can sit back down. Then from here, we're going to go back into tabletop. Then spread your knees wide, put your feet together, your two big toes. You can push back on your hips, onto your heels, head down, reach forward. Into child's pose. Okay, so those were some basic poses for today. I'm going to go back into the office and we're going to talk about the very last pose that you usually do at the end of yoga. There's many other poses. The 4-H Kids Yoga has lots of curriculum and posters. So if you have if you want more information or want to learn more about it, feel free to contact me. But I'm going to go in and show you one more video for Savasana.
This is your chance to really integrate everything, come back to that rest and digest mode, activate your parasympathetic nervous system. You're getting out of crazy stressed out fight mode and getting back to where your body wants to be to rebuild and reset. Typically, well, most of the time we do this at the end of class, maybe start at the beginning of class. And we're going to start from a seated position. Super easy. James is just going to lay all the way back onto his back. We'll start from the feet. Just let your feet flop open, James. Try and relax as much as you can. Give your arms some room to breathe, so spread your arms out a little bit wider. Lift your heart and try and snuggle your shoulder blades together and down your back. Nice. Head is relaxed back. What we see, especially in a lot of guys with strong shoulders, is that sometimes their shoulders are so built up that their chin lifts. Yep, James is demonstrating. You can help that by putting a block or a towel underneath your neck, or just kind of adjusting. So notice how his chin is in line with his chest, his airway is open so he can still breathe. And then really relax your jaw, your tongue, away from the roof of your mouth. Relax your face. And allow your body to completely melt down into the ground below you. Eyes are closed. The goal here is not to do much, which can be really challenging for most of us. Totally okay if you fall asleep. No one's going to judge you. Actually really nice and probably needed if your body goes there. Just begin to notice what comes up, sensations, thoughts. James and I were talking about this, and this is one of the most efficient yoga poses, your chance to really do nothing, but also observe your body, observe your mind. Super important to take Savasana, especially if you're going to leave a class early. Give yourself a couple minutes at the end just to reset kind of the closure of your yoga practice.
Okay, so I apologize. I didn't realize when I came back in that my mute was not off, that I was still on mute. So I hope that gives you an idea of Savasana. Again, I think it's one of the most important poses to do at the end. It really helps you relax, enjoy. I really like it when I do yoga at night and then I do a Savasana and then I'm ready for bed. The flow that we did, we usually would do that flow 2 or 3 times. We'll turn on music while we're doing the yoga poses. And then when we get into Savasana, we usually play kind of a soothing, maybe sounds of nature, something that's relaxing, not very super stimulating music, but very relaxing music. And it really helps people relax. So I'm going to click here and hopefully go into the next. There we go. So thank you guys. I'm sorry I'm a little bit over, but I hope you guys learned a little bit. If you have any questions, you can contact me. My email, I'll have Cindy put that in the chat. So thank you, everyone. And I hope you learned something and enjoyed today's program.